Space Coconut.
Okay, so I imagine that most of us have seen the forums erupt from time to time with NoED nerf threads. For the most part, they're all ragey, incoherent, salty nonsense aimed at gathering people to the cause to get the devs to nerf NoED for no other reason other than the fact that they got caught after all the gens were finished and they didn't escape right away. The devs have already said that it's fine and that they don't have any plans to change it. I'm totally fine with that. I think that it's the best hex perk out of all of them. So a couple of days ago, I made a post on the forums. But before I get into this, let me encourage you to sub and hit the notification bell if you enjoy these discussions. I'd love to do this full time, but I can only do that if more people know about the channel. I've also started tweeting highlights and thumbnails for the next day's videos, so follow me there and share the tweets if you want to help the channel grow. So anyway, in the forum thread, I asked, why does NoED feel bad for those who wanted it nerfed? I got several responses that I expected, but a few very solid reasons for change, if not a direct nerf. The one that stuck out to me was the comparison against the original Medal of Man. Medal allowed survivors to gain a benefit without any effort on their part. By itself, it wasn't a huge deal, but when stacked with the multitude of other similar effects across other survivors, it became a huge problem. This point was often conveniently ignored by players who said Medal was fine, but I digress. Something similar could be said about NoED. Sure, it has a counter. You can just cleanse the totem. But that's not the issue we're talking about right now. As a killer, I don't have to do anything for NoED to activate except allow all gens to be completed. I could stand still during the entire match, use Blood Warden and NoED, and potentially gain a 4K at the end. Now, I wouldn't rank up this way, but it seems that rank isn't the issue when it comes to the use of NoED. Some killers will still use it as a failsafe with their weaker killers, like I do for Nurse, and others will use it on their better killers in case they run into a strong survivor team focused on getting gens done ASAP, in case they run into a strong survivor team focused on finishing gens ASAP like I do with the Hag. But the point about not earning NoED's effect is something we can't ignore if we want Dead by Daylight to be balanced. It's 100% true. So, how could we change NoED to make it feel earned, but still be a powerful perk that survivors dread? No one escapes death. A hex rooting in its power on hope. You are animated by the power of your hex totem when the survivors are on the verge of escaping. Once the exit gates are powered, if there is a dull totem remaining on the map, this hex is applied to it. We all know what NoED does. But from its description, the idea behind NoED is to shatter the survivor's hope of escape just when they think they've succeeded. A similar effect is found in Devour Hope. As more survivors get rescued from hooks, the more powerful the effect becomes, peaking with the ability to mori survivors on the spot. The first step for the new NoED would be to establish what the peak power is. The exposed status in this situation feels bad. It's really the core of many issues survivors have with many perks and abilities. So, what could take its place, but still feel powerful for the killer and create a sense of dread in survivors, but still create a way for killers to earn the effect? Instead of looking at mechanics that currently exist, we could take this opportunity to introduce something new that could also be used for another weak mechanic in the game. What would create a greater sense of dread and urgency within survivors than seeing their own perks wiped from their slots by the entity? As a survivor is sacrificed, the remaining survivors have their perks disabled for a long duration of time. One survivor becomes sacrificed, and 3 survivors have a perk disabled for this period. 2 sacrifices, and 2 survivors will have 2 perks disabled for the duration. 3 sacrifices means that the last survivor has 1 perk available for the remainder of the match. Like Devour Hope, the killer must earn this perk's effect through sacrifices. While it sounds overpowered, the current state of the game allows for survivors without perks to do just fine against killers depending on their skill level. This is of course debatable, but it would also give survivors more incentive to grow in actual skill. The problem with this perk would come in the form of tunneling and camping. But the game has had these issues since day one. Similar to Dying Light and Remember Me, The killer is incentivized to eliminate one survivor as soon as possible. This will be difficult for lower skilled survivors to deal with, but the killer still needs to sacrifice a survivor in the first place. I'm obviously not a dev, so I'm not going to worry about the smaller details of this idea. Higher skilled survivors will be familiar with the tactics needed to evade being seen by the killer entirely, securing the functionality of their perks and their escape. Even if the killer chooses to camp, survivors have a multitude of skills available to counter camping, which also includes doing their primary objective. The reason I chose to go this route was to also create an option for totem cleansing. By applying this mechanic to totems, when cleansing a lit totem, the cleansing survivor would have to sacrifice one of their own perks for the remainder of the match at random to remove the killer's perk. Of course, this would exclude haunted grounds. The idea behind this suggestion for NoED is to create a growing sense of dread and urgency in the survivors. While this might not be the actual feeling that survivors get when their perks are disabled, frustration is a natural part of a competitive game, and we've all dealt with our fair share of frustration at the hands of the dev balance and design choices. There are a lot of problems with this idea, but it's just another idea. There are dozens like them on the forums. Maybe the devs will listen to the community with less hubris and actually take some of our advice. There's a crap ton to be found by everyone who's played this game. For now, NoED is staying as it is, and that's fine with me. It really is a good solution to the gen rush as it currently is. Plus, the salt from using the perk can be tasty from time to time. But let's be honest though. Getting the sacrifices with NoED does feel like a cheap win when the survivors do a genuinely good job against me. Although the salt is nice, it isn't as rewarding as outplaying the survivors and winning that way. I suppose this could be another reason for changing NoED, and changing around the survivors' objectives as well, to create a more interesting gaming experience for all players. I mean, seriously, I've had matches where I've gotten destroyed, but the match itself was very enjoyable. And then matches where I destroyed the survivors, but the match wasn't very fun at all. There are a lot of feel-bad things in Dead by Daylight, with NoED being one of them for the survivors. The only thing we can do is to keep bringing up the frustrating things over and over and over and over until the devs actually let us know what they're doing to change them, just like we did with Freddy. Thanks to Freddy's rework, we know they can make positive changes to the game. Now, we can bring this up over and over when it comes to the other negative things in the game. Let me know what you guys think. I know I might not be the only one who thinks this way, but I also know that not everybody's going to agree with me on this. I think it'll make for an interesting discussion. But for now, I think I'm going to think about all of the other things that might need to be fixed, or the other things that everybody already knows needs to be fixed or addressed in Dead by Daylight. Yeah, it's time to make a list. In the meantime, I'll see you in the fog.